So here we're moving each number to the correct category. We have the categories perfect square, which means when you square root a number, it's going to equal a pretty number. It's going to equal an integer. And remember, integer just means a positive or negative whole number. So like 5, -2, 10, a nice pretty number. If it's a perfect cube, that means when you take the cube root, it's going to equal an integer, a positive or negative counting number. If it's both, it means it gives you a good answer for square root and cube root. And if it's neither, it means it gives you an irrational answer. It doesn't work for square roots and it doesn't work for cube roots. So I'm just going to put, well, I'll just leave it like that. So let's go ahead and get our calculator and try some of these. So we're going to try the square root of 4 to see if that is a perfect square. Some of you guys may have this memorized, and that's great. If you do, you don't have to type it in. But remember, when we're doing perfect square, we're saying what times what multiplies to give us that number. So 2 times 2 equals 4. So the square root of 4, or 2, is a perfect square. I just said that backwards. 4 is a perfect square because 2 is its answer. Now we know that 4 can go in the perfect square category, but let's check perfect cube category. So we're going to go over here, and remember, to do the cube root, you have to go to functions, miscellaneous, and then hit this button. We want the 3 for the cube root and then 4. Now this is an irrational number. That means that 4 is not a perfect cube. So 4 would just go into the perfect square category. All right, let's check 9. So first we're going to square root 9. Get rid of these. So the square root of 9 is 3. So that is a perfect square. Now let's try the cube root. So 3 root 9. That's not a pretty one. This is an irrational number, so it is not a perfect cube. So 9 is a perfect square. All right, let's try 25. So we'll do the square root of 25, and it works. So it is a perfect square. And now let's try the cube root. Remember, you go to function, miscellaneous, get that button. 3 in the top, 25 in the bottom. Oops, that's irrational. That is not a perfect cube. So 25 goes over here. All right, let's try 27. So we're going to do the square root of 27. That's irrational, so it's not a perfect square. And then we're going to go over here to functions, miscellaneous, and type in our cube root of 27. That one does work, so it's a perfect cube. So this one is not a perfect square, but it is a perfect cube. All right, let's try 50. The square root of 50, that's irrational. That one didn't work. So let's go over here and try the cube root of 50. That's also irrational. So 50 is not a perfect square or a perfect cube. It is neither. Let's try 64. Some of you may already know this. The square root of 64 is 8, so it is a perfect square. And now let's try a cube. So functions, miscellaneous, and then type in the cube root of 64. That one also works. So this one is a perfect square and a perfect cube. Y'all, I should have mentioned this way earlier, but when you type in a cube root, you absolutely positively cannot hit 3 and then the square root button and then 64. This does not give you the answer you're looking for. This takes the square root of 64, which is 8, and multiplies it by 3. This is not a cube root. Please be very careful when you're checking your calculator. Make sure that you are actually getting the cube root. So this one is both. It is a perfect square and a perfect cube. And now let's do the square root of 100. We're going to check to see if it's a perfect square by square rooting. And it is. And then we're going to check to see if it's a perfect cube by cube rooting. And it is not. So that one is just a perfect square.